Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to use Azure ARM templates, PowerShell, and Azure's command line interface or CLI to deploy our bot to Azure. So if you are working on a Windows machine, I assume that you already have a PowerShell installed and in working state. The ARM templates were provided when we initiated our bot using human bot generator. And we are going to use the same ARM templates to create a new resource group and new app and deploy our locally built tested bot to Azure. To download Azure CLI, you can just go to Google and then search for Azure CLI download for Windows. Just click on the top result. This will take you to Microsoft's documentation page. And this will provide you all information on how you can install Azure CLI on Windows machine. So there are basically two ways that you can use to install your Azure CLI, and both of them are pretty straightforward. You can either download the MSI installer for Azure CLI. So once you download the MSI installer, you will get Azure CLI MSI file. You can just simply execute it, choose all the default options, and this will install your CLI and set the executables to your system and user path. So I've already done this. I've already installed the CLI. I'm gonna move on to next step. So I've opened my PowerShell window, and the first thing that you need to do is to log in into your Azure account. For that, you can run the command az space login. This will open up a browser window and take you to Microsoft's SSO login page. Just click on your account and you will be logged in into your PowerShell, into your Azure account. So here we can see we are already logged in into our Azure account, and it has provided us with all the details of the account. In the next step, we need to set our subscription that we are going to use. So you may have multiple subscriptions available under your account in Azure. So I have just one account. I'm gonna set the subscription ID that I'm going to use. And the command to set your subscription is az account space set and then subscription, and then you need to give your subscription that we just copied and press enter. So our subscription is set. Let me clear the screen. So if you have worked on Azure before, you would already know, but for those who haven't worked on Azure before or deployed any hosted service on Azure, so whenever you want to deploy any application in Azure, whether it's a bot or one of the other hosted services provided by Azure, you need to create a Azure Active Directory application ID first. This application ID in case of hosted bot is required for users to be able to interact with the bot via a set of channels such as web chat. And it also provides a definition of OAuth connection settings to authenticate a user and to create a token used by the bot to access protected resources on behalf of the user. So if you have an authentication mechanism included in your bot, generating this Azure Active Directory application ID will help in integrating your users with your Active Directory. So your users will be able to authenticate using the AD, and then the bot will be able to access user resources on behalf of them. So we want our Active Directory application ID to be visible to other tenants because we are going to connect to other channels in Azure to connect our bot to Skype or Facebook Messenger or web chat. So in order to do that, we need to make our bot tenant ID to be accessible by those channels for which the tenant IDs can be different. So I'm going to add available to other tenants parameter. And then I want to give a name to our app ID. I'm gonna just call it RR web app bot. And then we need to provide a password for our app ID, or you can say it acts like a client secret. I'm gonna put a random password, and then press enter. So our app ID is created. So let's just save all the details that we have just got. We just need the app ID, so I'm gonna just save the app ID, and then I'm going to save the password as well. And that's it. I'm gonna clear the screen. So in the next step, we want to use the ARM templates that we generated when we generated our initial bot using UMN generator. So let's go to our RR bot home folder where we have our ARM templates saved. Let's do a list of all the files, and under deployment templates you will see all our templates. So let's go to Visual Studio Code and see what's the content of these templates and what are the parameters that we need to pass. So we are going to use new resource group parameters and new resource group template to create our web app service in Azure. So this template will contain a lot of different variables like group location, group name, app ID, app secret, etc. We have to provide SKU, and we need to pass all these values when we will run the command to create our web app bot service. So let's go back to our PowerShell. So let's clear our screen. So to create this new web app bot deployment, I've already created a command that we need to run with all the parameters already passed in. So here you can see I have passed in the template. This is I want to create a new resource group. So I've chosen template with new resource group JSON file, and then I've given the location as West US, and then there are a lot of parameters that we need to pass which are present in our template. So I've passed the app ID that we just generated, then the app secret, and then we need to create a bot ID. Let me just name it RR chatbot, and then the SKU, this is the service tier that we need to provide. So I'm giving F0, which is a free tier, and then we have to provide the name of app service plan, the new web app name. We need to provide a new group name, which will be our resource group, and for all these values I've provided RR chatbot as the name, and then again resource group location, and then new service plan location, and then again the name of our bot endpoint, which will be RR chatbot. So I'm gonna just copy the whole command and then run it in PowerShell. The deployment is done, and you will see all the details of your app service that Azure has created for you. So everything looks good and our web app deployment has been created. So let's go to our Azure portal. So let's go to our RR chatbot resource that has been just created. So under RR chatbot you will see that nothing has been deployed yet. We have just set up the base, or you can say just like we set up IIS server in our Windows machine, we have set up the platform to run our bot, but we still need to deploy our code. So to deploy our Node.js application in Azure, we need to create a web.config file. For that you can run a deployment preparation command in PowerShell. So let's go back to our PowerShell and prepare our code for deployment. Just make sure you are in your code's root directory. In our case it's RRBot. So I'm in the right place. And then run this command. So this command will prepare our Node.js code to be deployed in Azure and create a web.config file. So if you do a quick list of files, you will see a web.config file has been created. We don't have to make any modification in this file. We are just going to upload this file as is. This is required for IIS to run our Node.js code. So in the next step, we need to create a zip of all the files in our RRBot, And then we will run another command to upload the zip file and deploy it in our newly created web app service. So let's go to our code directory, and then I'm going to select all the files. So I'm going to zip up all the other files and name it rrchatbot.zip. So I have again created the command beforehand. Let's just have a look at the command which is going to deploy our code to our newly created web app service. So we can use AZ web app deployment command to deploy our zip file to our web app service called rrchatbot. I have already put in all the parameters for you. So we need to provide the type of source that we are going to upload. In our case, this is going to be a zip file that we have just created. Then we need to provide the resource group name and also the app service name under that resource group. And in the end, I have provided the path to our zip file. So let's just copy the whole command and run it in PowerShell. This might take some time. And once this command has run successfully, we are going to see all our code deployed in Azure. So the zip deployment has started. Let's wait for the deployment to complete. So our deployment is complete. So let's go to our Azure portal and see our code. So Azure portal also provides you a nice interface where you can see all your code, edit your code, and run commands like npm install from inside the portal itself. To reach that interface, you need to go to rrchatbot app service. And then just scroll down on the left side menu. And at the bottom, you will see app service editor. Just click on that and the app service editor will open up. And then click on go. And this will open up a nice interface for your rrchatbot code. And then you can edit your code directly from this editor, or if you click on the console button, it will open a console for you where you can run commands like npm install. So this console was part of the first release of app service editor that Microsoft released in Azure. So if you go back to rrchatbot in Azure, under the app service, scroll down, and under development tools, you will see a list of other tools and services that Microsoft has added in Azure to manage your web app bot. So beside the app service editor, you also get a console. So let's go ahead and click on this console. So this console provides you with a bash command line tool that is able to run some basic commands like make directory and changing directories, etc. It's much more advanced and it's much more responsive than using the console built into app service editor. And in this console, you can again list all the files that you have deployed. It will by default open your web app services root folder. And again, you can run npm install and all the other commands and run vi editor. So this is something really good if you want to debug your code hosted in Azure. So beside this console, you will also get some advanced tools. These are also some developer oriented tools which will help you in debugging your code or editing your code in your directly in your Azure. So these are called kudu services, and there are a lot of things that Microsoft is actively working on it. This is just a preview version, so you can always log in here and see what is the latest and how it can help you with your development process. I'll go back to rrchatbot Azure portal. So we have our code uploaded in Azure as a web app service. Now we need to start our service. To start our web app service, let's go to overview. And then you can always, so by default it will be in started process once your deployment is over. If you want to restart your service, you can just click on restart. So because we chose Node.js as our platform while building this app service, so this is going to start our Node.js RESTify API in the backend. Now let's go back to home, and now we want to test our Azure hosted bot from Azure. So Azure also provides you with a testing client that you can use to test your bot right inside your Azure portal. So let's go to bot channels registration service. Now before we can test our bot in built-in test web chat in Azure portal, we need to enable direct line channel. So I'm going to click on channels option in under bot management, and then just make sure your direct line channel is up and running. You can click on the edit button and just make sure that you have at least one side added under the configuration, and then just make sure it's not disabled, and that's it. So this test in web chat built-in option will automatically detect this direct line channel and will connect to your bot using this channel. So I'm going to just click on done. So my direct line channel is running. So enabling direct line channel is just that easy. So I'm going to just click on test in web chat. And as soon as you open it, here you go, you get the welcome message that we built and tested in emulator. So our bot seems to be working just fine, and it has been deployed successfully in Azure. So let's go ahead and try to test it. I'm going to click on restaurant address option. This should fetch back an answer from Q&A maker. There you go. I got the answer from Q&A maker, and then again we got the suggested actions message. So this seems to be working fine. So in the next lecture, we are going to see how we can set up a simple web chat web client in our local machine, and then try to connect to a bot hosted in Azure using that simple web chat client. That's all for this session, and I'm going to see you in next lecture.